Having William by my side is a great source of comfort and reassurance too.
Princess Catherine flatly rejected Queen Camilla's demand to move Princess Charlotte's chair away from the center of the state banquet seating chart. This direct declaration of war instantly triggered an unprecedented life-or-death confrontation, turning a child's seating arrangement into a blazing battlefield between the two most powerful women in the royal family. This core conflict stemmed from Camilla's cruel sin at the previous winter ceremony, when she covertly pushed Charlotte into a blind spot, moving the little girl to tears, then arrogantly challenged Kate by leaving a letter bearing a venomous phrase, "Far too soon." Unwilling to endure such humiliation, Kate used her sharp detective skills to expose this systematic smear campaign, forcing the treacherous courtier to name the culprit. Together with Prince William, she set a four-way trap in a private room to reclaim her daughter's honor. Will Camilla's venomous trap question: are you challenging the crown? Break the solid unity of the Wales couple between indulging his wife and securing the royal future of his granddaughter? How will King Charles act when faced with this evidence of emotional blackmail? What brutal punishment will the villain receive when the silver pen is dropped? The darkest secret of the palace officially begins. The gold-inlaid oak chair, lined with brilliant red velvet, was the absolute centerpiece of the upcoming state banquet at the palace. On the long mahogany table, which reflected the magnificent light from the chandeliers, hundreds of sparkling silver cutlery sets were arranged precisely to the millimeter. In this grand space, a seat was not merely a place to rest, it was an affirmation of bloodline honor and the practical right of succession for an entire dynasty. The central chair, positioned right next to the king, belonged according to the original plan to little Princess Charlotte. Charlotte, despite her tender age, had already displayed a remarkably calm, serene personality and a keen awareness of her duty to the royal crown. She always appeared with flawless royal etiquette, earning great affection and high expectations from both the public and family members. Soon, she was destined to take over the prestigious Sussex title, a title that Meghan had treated carelessly smeared and abandoned to chase controversial glamour overseas. Charlotte was the new hope, the symbol of purity and the continuity of the legitimate royal bloodline, restoring the Sussex title to its inherent dignity. But it was precisely the brilliance and affection everyone showered on Charlotte that made her a thorn in Queen Camilla's side. For a woman who had spent her entire life calculating every step to the top, Charlotte's prominence was a direct threat to her own spotlight during the current reign. Camilla did not want anyone stealing her glory, especially the Wales bloodline of her husband's late ex-wife. Charlotte's central presence at the state banquet would ensure that every major newspaper headline the next morning focused entirely on the little girl completely overshadowing the queen. Standing before the gilded leather state banquet chart laid out on her private desk, Camilla stared at the symbol of Charlotte's name right at the center. Her eyes narrowed, revealing the jealousy and tyranny of someone unwilling to share any spiritual privileges with the younger generation. Camilla decided she could not let this child continue to capture the attention of international VIPs and the global media. She turned to her trusted courtier, standing timidly nearby, slightly gesturing with her chin toward the chart. A ruthless order was delivered in a whispered yet bone-chilling voice, demanding that Charlotte's chair be moved far away from the symbolically central position. Camilla wanted to completely strip the child of her prominence, pushing her to the very end of the long table, the most obscured spot almost entirely hidden by large candelabras and distant relatives, right next to the door leading to the noisy kitchen area. This deliberate demotion of Charlotte's status was a fatal blow aimed directly at the honor of the Wales family. Camilla wanted to use the chair to send a ruthless message. As long as she sat on the Queen's throne, even the children of the legitimate bloodline would have to bow beneath her shadow. The seating chart was quickly altered in secrecy by her henchmen initiating a systematic smear campaign to isolate the poor child. However, Camilla's plot immediately hit a solid stone wall. As soon as the new chart leaked and reached Kensington Palace, Princess Catherine noticed the abnormality. Sitting before her vanity, Kate stared at her daughter's chair, being pushed to the periphery of the grand banquet. Her face showed no sign of weakness or panic. Instead, it was filled with an eerie, terrifying coldness and stillness. She understood perfectly well the dark intentions of the stepmother behind this change. Kate did not choose to cry or complain to the staff to seek pity. She knew that in this palace, a weak reaction meant surrender and would only encourage the enemy to press forward. With the resolve of a mother ready to fight to protect her children, Kate coldly rejected the Queen's new arrangement. She bluntly ordered the service staff to return Charlotte's chair to its original central position, refusing to concede even a single step to Camilla's covert imposition. Kate's quiet but firm refusal was a direct declaration of war sent straight to the Queen's private quarters. Catherine's extreme resolve and hardness regarding the central chair was not a spontaneous reaction. It was rooted in a deep emotional wound from less than a few weeks ago. At the Windsor Winter Toast, an outdoor royal event full of lights and international media cameras, a cruel mental crime had occurred right before the eyes of Kate and hundreds of palace staff, leaving a deep pain in little Princess Charlotte. On that evening, King Charles had personally expressed his wish for his granddaughter Charlotte to stand right next to him on the red carpet reception line to take commemorative photos with the VIP guests. The king truly loved the little girl's politeness and wanted to demonstrate to the public the solid continuity of the future generation. However, Camilla would not allow that to happen in accordance with proper royal protocol. She could not stand the sight of Kate's daughter occupying the best frames of the winter ceremony. Receiving a stealthy order from the Queen Camilla's trusted courtier, covertly intervened in the standing arrangements just as the members stepped onto the red carpet area. This henchman used his large frame pretending to coordinate the lines of the staff, but in reality, he was intentionally shoving. He roughly pushed Charlotte far back behind another relative, right in front of the camera lenses, leaving the little girl completely isolated in a dark corner behind the adults. Charlotte, though trying to maintain the composure and pride of a princess, had her small eyes welling with tears from the humiliation and hurt of this brutal dismissal. She was left behind, stranded in the cold, despite her grandfather's prior promise. King Charles, busy greeting VIPs at the front, was completely unaware of his wife's malicious intervention. This dirty shoving tactic took place right in front of the palace staff, becoming a covert insult to the Wales family. Kate had witnessed the entire scene of her daughter being pushed to the back from afar. A mother's heart tightened at the sight of the innocent child's unshed tears. Camilla's injustice and ruthlessness toward a 10-year-old child left a deep gash in the heart of the Princess of Wales. This was no longer a petty feud over spotlight between grown women. It was an act of cruelty aimed at an innocent child. Kate promised herself that this would be the last time she ever let Camilla trample on her family. Kate's fury reached its peak when she returned to her private quarters at the palace after the ceremony concluded. On her marble vanity, right next to her precious jewelry box, lay a piece of private palace stationery. The paper was exquisitely corner-cut using the exclusive black ink reserved strictly for the highest-ranking figures in the royal family. But the horror lay in the arrogant and defiant handwritten words upon it. Someone had secretly broken into her private space and left the phrase, "prematurely," prominent. The words were like a direct slap in Kate's face, a mockery from the victor after the winter ceremony, asserting that Charlotte did not deserve to stand in the center, and that the Wales family's efforts to elevate her were merely a ridiculous rush. This physical piece of evidence was proof positive of a systematic campaign, a plot calculated well in advance to humiliate her daughter. The perpetrator did not just want to act in the dark. They arrogantly wanted to psychologically blackmail Kate and break her will in her most private sanctuary. Instead of panicking or seeking an arbiter, Kate picked up the note, her fingers tightening around its edges. Her eyes flashed with a cold, decisive gaze. She knew she was facing a venomous viper, and to protect her children, she could not afford to be merciful. Kate tucked the note into a secret compartment, turning it into concrete evidence for the hunt that was about to begin. The anger built up from the winter ceremony had now transformed the gentle mother into a cold detective. The state banquet was drawing dangerously close, and the atmosphere inside the palace grew more suffocating and tense than ever under Camilla's covert direction to isolate Charlotte. The villain remained blissfully smug. Camilla was confident that with the crown on her head and the king's protection, she could manipulate any seating arrangement without anyone daring to utter a word. She appeared in the grand halls with an arrogant smile, believing Kate had been completely subdued by the prematurely prominent threat, and would accept letting her daughter sit in the obscured corner near the kitchen. But Camilla was wrong. Kate was by no means sitting idly by in helpless surrender. She silently mapped out an independent investigation campaign, cold and precise, like a true criminal forensics expert, leaving absolutely no external trace. For her first step, Kate focused on the single piece of physical evidence she held, the venomous note left on her vanity. She knew that this high-grade gilded stationery was not something just anyone could access. It was managed with extreme strictness within the palace internal inventory. Kate leveraged her loyal connections among the long-serving service staff to scour the royal supplies archive. She quietly checked the inventory logbooks and discovered a crucial detail: this specific batch of stationery, bearing a distinct embossed watermark code in the corner, had been delivered exclusively to Queen Camilla's office less than a month ago. This was the first clue that locked the scope of suspects tightly onto those closest to her cruel stepmother. Next, regardless of the late-night hours, Kate secretly verified the movement schedules and work logs of the courtiers on the night of the Windsor winter toast and the night the note was left in her room. She meticulously cross-referenced the timeline of the winter ceremony with the list of staff present at the red carpet scene when Charlotte was pushed to the back. The patience and determination of a mother seeking justice paid off when she found a flawless coincidence. It was Camilla's closest, most trusted courtier, the one who constantly lingered like a shadow behind the queen, who was the only individual present on the red carpet to shove the child, and whose name also appeared on the staff list that signed out that specific batch of stationery from the archives. Not stopping there, Kate took a bold step forward to finalize her evidence dossier. She collected handwriting samples from the courtier's past work receipts to compare them against the handwriting on the venomous note. Under her desk lamp at night, placing the two documents side by side, Kate intensely analyzed every stroke. She noticed that the ligatures, the slant of the letters, and the way the characters in prematurely prominent ended matched the courtier's handwriting perfectly. Every piece of concrete evidence converged on a single point, leaving no room for baseless speculation. Kate held a definitive map of the crime, proving that Camilla's trusted courtier had directly orchestrated both events under the Queen's puppeteering. The trap was set, and Kate prepared to launch her decisive counterstrike to unmask the perpetrator. That night, the corridor beneath the palace basement was plunged into an eerie silence. This was an isolated area housing old storerooms and passageways reserved strictly for service staff, completely detached from the luxury and glamour of the banquet halls above. Camilla's courtier, having completed a day of scheming, was pacing quickly through this dark corridor to return to his private room, still secretly smug because the plan to swap Charlotte's chair for the upcoming state banquet seemed to have gone off without a hitch, and no one could overturn the board. But just as he rounded a bend hidden from the wall, sconces, a figure stepped out from the shadows, blocking his path. It was Catherine. She stood there solitary, yet carrying the supreme authority of Wales, her face as cold as ice under the dim light. The courtier startled back a step, the confidence vanishing from his face, replaced by a sudden unease as he met the razor-sharp gaze of the princess. He could never have expected her to appear in such a secluded place at night. Without a single empty greeting, without a wasted motion, Kate raised her hand and slammed the prematurely prominent note alongside the dossier containing the handwriting match and movement logs onto an antique wooden table nearby. The documents hit the tabletop, creating a suffocating psychological pressure in the narrow space of the basement corridor. Kate stepped forward, pinning the courtier against the cold stone wall. Her voice dropped not loud, but every word carried the weight of a final verdict. Did you think you could hide your tracks forever? The entirety of the physical evidence regarding your stealthy intrusion into my room and your heartless shoving of my daughter at the winter ceremony is right here. Do you know the consequences of smearing and humiliating a princess of the legitimate royal bloodline? The courtier stared at the documents on the table, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead, his face draining of all color. He tried to maintain his composure, stammering an attempt to deny the accusation, making excuses that it was merely a misunderstanding in staff coordination and that he had no ill intentions toward the princess. He still harbored hope that Kate would not dare make a scene for fear of affecting the palace's reputation and relationships among family members. But Kate gave him absolutely no opportunity to evade accountability. She coldly cut him off, delivering a ruthless ultimatum to crush his remaining will. Do not waste your lies on me. If you do not name the person who ordered you to do these things, I will hand this entire pile of evidence and the statements from the archive staff to the king immediately. You will be expelled from this palace in disgrace, stripped of all honor, wealth, and status. Your career will be completely finished. The immense psychological pressure from Kate entirely broke the courtier's final resistance. He understood perfectly well that in this war he was merely a sacrificial pawn, and Queen Camilla would readily discard him to protect herself if the matter were exposed to the king. His legs trembled, his arrogance collapsed entirely, and he sank to his knees upon the cold stone floor at the feet of the Princess of Wales. In utter despair and terror, the courtier bowed his head, his voice shaking violently as he confessed the horrifying truth behind the smear campaign. He admitted that Queen Camilla was the mastermind behind everything, from ordering him to deliberately shove Charlotte at the winter ceremony, to make her cry, to personally handing him the venomous note and forcing him to slip it into Kate's room to psychologically threaten her. He wept and begged for mercy, asserting that he was merely an employee obeying the supreme orders of the Queen. Kate stood watching the trembling henchman. She had obtained exactly what she needed, a direct confession exposing Camilla's low-handed sins. Immediately after stepping out of the dark palace tunnel with the signed confession of the treacherous courtier, Catherine returned to Kensington Palace. She did not waste a single second hesitating. Upon Prince William's oak desk, Kate placed the prematurely prominent note alongside the confession that exposed the entire smear campaign targeted at their 10-year-old daughter. The fury of a father and a husband erupted within William the moment he saw the physical evidence. His eyes burned with rage as he realized his stepmother's cruelty had crossed the boundaries of what his family could endure. Refusing any compromise or mediation through intermediaries, the Wales couple decided to launch a total offensive. They demanded an urgent, direct four-way confrontation with absolutely no assistant secretaries or attendants present. The location was set immediately: the King and Queen's private secluded quarters deep within the palace, where the greatest family secrets were always kept behind heavy, thick wooden doors. The atmosphere inside the room was so stifling that it felt as though a single spark could detonate everything. King Charles sat in a large armchair, his face showing visible exhaustion and anxiety over his eldest son's sudden arrival, while Camilla stood near the window, attempting to maintain her usual arrogant composure, though her tightly intertwined fingers betrayed her extreme unease. William and Kate entered the room, decisively locking the heavy wooden door behind them. Their presence brought a suffocating pressure, shattering the false peace of the room. Without any hollow greetings, Kate walked straight to the center table, firmly placing the insulting note and the written confession of the courtier right before King Charles, directly next to the altered state banquet chart. "Father, it is time to put an end to these dirty schemes." William spoke, his voice echoing with authority, and coldness breaking the terrifying silence. He pointed at the evidence on the table, exposing the systematic campaign Camilla had orchestrated to humiliate Princess Charlotte at the winter ceremony, and the plot to displace her chair at the upcoming state banquet. Seeing the ironclad evidence exposed before her husband, Camilla knew she had been backed into a corner. However, the instincts of an old fox would not allow her to surrender easily. Instead of admitting fault or showing remorse for her cruel behavior toward a child, Camilla decided to flip the narrative by deploying the ultimate weapon she always used for manipulation, the authority of the throne. She took a step forward, her face turning sharp and tyrannical, her eyes glaring straight at Kate. Camilla intentionally pushed the tension to its absolute peak, turning a battle to protect a child into a rebellion against the head of the royal family. She screamed a highly toxic trap question, echoing through the closed room to force Kate into a corner. "Are you challenging the crown?" Camilla's question was a lethal verbal trap designed to frame the Princess of Wales for treason. She wanted to brand Kate as a rebel who dared stand against the decision of the reigning queen. Camilla believed that by elevating the nature of the conflict to the sanctity of the throne, she would force King Charles to take her side to protect the family order, while compelling the Wales couple to retreat in fear and silence. Camilla stood with her arms crossed her chest, heaving with smug satisfaction after her venomous trap question. She stared at Kate, waiting for panic, a pleading look, or at least some awkwardness from the daughter-in-law who had always been patient and enduring. Camilla also glanced at King Charles, hoping the king would fly into a rage at the Wales family to protect the honor of his wedded wife. But the exact moment Camilla thought her verbal trap had completely defeated Kate, Prince William unexpectedly stepped out from the darker corner of the room. He did not flinch, showing not a shred of fear or hesitation before his stepmother's emotional blackmail. William stepped up, standing rigidly shoulder to shoulder, with Kate forming an unbreakable defensive wall in front of his wife. William's gaze locked directly onto Camilla, ice cold and filled with the practical authority of an heir. He did not bother to argue or justify themselves against her baseless accusation of treason, because he and Kate had already laid a perfect countertrap that Camilla never anticipated. William reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a document bearing a brilliant red stamp, and slammed it onto the table right over Camilla's fraudulent banquet chart. It was a supreme decree issued directly from his own Wales office. William delivered a thunderous declaration, every word striking like a decree directly against the Queen's ambitions. "You are right. We are not challenging the crown, but we hold supreme authority over all events of national symbolic significance. And based on the authority of the Wales office, I declare that Princess Charlotte's original central seating arrangement for the state banquet stands. No one, including you, has the right to change it." The arrival of this trump card completely stripped Camilla of her initiative and shattered her arguments. The authority of the Wales office was a tangible, independent, and supreme power regarding protocol establishment for major events, completely unshakable by Camilla's empty threats made in the name of the crown. William used his own legal framework and practical authority to cut off his stepmother's every retreat, protecting his daughter absolutely. Camilla stared at the document with the red seal of the Wales office, her face instantly draining of blood as her arrogance entirely crumbled. The verbal trap of treason she had just woven was smashed to pieces by William's institutional power. She turned to look at King Charles, her eyes filled with visible panic, silently begging for a saving intervention from the husband who had indulged her for so long. Now, all the pressure of this life-or-death confrontation fell squarely upon King Charles. The king was caught in a brutal and painful dilemma. On one side was his indulgence and affection for the wife who had shared half his life, a woman who constantly sought to assert her absolute dominance within the palace through schemes to isolate the younger generation. On the other side was the future of the entire monarchy, the honor of the legitimate bloodline, and the unwavering unity of the Wales couple, the very individuals who held the future of the dynasty. A terrifying silence enveloped the room as King Charles looked from the venomous note and the humiliating confession of the courtier to the ironclad decree of the Wales office. Each piece of physical evidence laid bare was a dagger plunged straight into his trust in Camilla. He realized that if he continued to tolerate his wife's dirty games targeted at a 10-year-old child, he would personally destroy his relationship with his eldest son and plunge the family into an endless internal war. The covert power struggle between the two generations reached its peak of brutality as King Charles slowly extended his hand, picking up the exclusive silver pen resting on his desk. This was the pen symbolizing the king's supreme approval, the very item Camilla desperately craved her husband to use to sign the revised banquet chart, sidelining Charlotte from the center. Camilla held her breath, following the movement of her husband's hand, harboring a final spark of hope that personal affection and long-standing indulgence would triumph over all. But it did not. King Charles's face suddenly turned terrifyingly cold and resolute. Before the eyes of William and Kate, the king raised his hand, but instead of signing his wife's amendment, he decisively dropped the silver pen onto the desk. The pen fell, rolled across the wood, and dropped straight onto the floor, creating a small sound that carried the immense weight of a final judgment. The king resolutely refused to sign Camilla's seating modification, choosing instead to protect the central position for his granddaughter Charlotte. "Enough, Camilla! It ends here!" The king said, his voice low, but containing an unprecedented firmness, his gaze completely turning away from the queen. The king's decision to drop the silver pen was a death sentence for Camilla's influence within the palace, drawing a sharp boundary around her power in the face of the unwavering unity of the Wales couple. Brutal and humiliating retribution immediately crashed down upon the arrogant woman. Camilla bitterly realized she had lost all of her husband's trust, lost the psychological power she had painstakingly built over the years, and had to endure public humiliation right in front of Kate. The battle ended in a terrifying silence. Without a word of justification, without a single tear, Camilla retreated gloomily and solitarily from the private quarters, walking like a ruined shadow entirely pushed out of the current generation's sphere of influence. On the night of the state banquet, the grand hall of the palace blazed with the brilliance of thousands of candles and luxurious silver services. VIP guests from all over the world turned their eyes toward the central banquet table. There, exactly as originally arranged, Princess Charlotte sat beautifully in the radiant center position, right next to King Charles, her face exuding the composure and confidence of a true successor to the prestigious Sussex title. Sitting across from her daughter, Princess Catherine smiled a quiet smile that held the immense pride of a victorious mother. She looked over at Prince William, who sat beside her with a steadfast gaze. Together, they had weathered the storm using intellect and practical authority to crush every dirty plot in the dark, asserting that a mother's love to protect her children is an unassailable force. From your perspective, is this the absolute end for Queen Camilla, or merely a temporary retreat for this scheming woman to prepare a more vicious revenge from the shadows? Do you believe Kate's resilient maternal love and William's authority from the Wales office will be enough to protect little Princess Charlotte against the next traps aimed at the prestigious Sussex title? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.